Hello, everyone, and welcome to our masterclass session on gamification in LMS, the proven formula to supercharge training. I'm your host, Anubha, for today's masterclass session. So, whether you're an L&D professional or someone who is really passionate about transforming e-learning experiences, this is going to be an insightful session for you. So, I'm delighted to introduce you all with our two exceptional speakers who are at the forefront of leveraging innovative technologies in the realm of learning and development. So, firstly, let me introduce our guest speaker for the day, Mr. Tamal Bhatia. Tamal is a co-founder at Blue Sky Learning and founder of Coach.ai, bringing over 25 plus years of experience in coaching, gamification, and L&D domains. So as an L&D leader, he has been instrumental in leveraging innovative technologies that can supercharge workforce development. On the other side, joining him is Mr. Prasun Nigam, and he's our very own Chief Technology Officer at Stratbeans. Prasun is a master of innovation when it comes to leveraging innovative and latest technologies that can supercharge workforce engagement, retention, and overall outcomes for any industry. So together, Tamal and Prasun are going to share powerful insights on gamification and how it can drive learning outcomes at scale. So without further delay, let's dive right in. Tamal and Prasun, welcome and thank you for leading today's masterclass session. Over to you now.
Thank you, Anubha.
All right. Thank you, Anubha, for setting this up. And I'm really glad I'm joining in from Bangalore. And Tamal is joining in from Dubai. And I see that a lot of attendees across the globe have joined in. So welcome to all of you. And it'll be a lot of fun because Tamal and I are doing this session for the first time. And we both bring in a lot of years of very hands-on gamification experience. And we have seen various failed projects, various successful projects, and those things culminated into this idea of doing a masterclass. Essentially that. Now, if I look at the audience, I'm sure there are three types of audiences. One is you may be using a lot of gamification platforms in a very advanced level. So for you, in this masterclass, the ROI would be that we may pass on certain cases, references for you to really think and say, maybe this is the technique I can use. We may also share some ideas on when not to use, because sometimes knowing when not to use is more important than when to use. Then we will cover, the second audience, which may be using a little bit of gamification either in content or platform. For you, what we offer is, a little bit of terminologies around gamification so that you can evaluate whether a particular platform is gamified in its right elements, and what kind of behavioral dynamics are possible for you to play with, what are the different touch points. And people who are totally new to gamification, you have so much to absorb, so soak in whatever good parts you have, and that could be a start point for you. With that, what I'll do, I'll share my screen, and I and Tamal will keep the co-masters in this session. We'll keep coming in and sharing our insights. So we try to make this session quite useful and fun for you. All right. There's some audio. I think yeah. So broadly, this will be the agenda. Looks like a long list, but like I already covered some of it. We'll talk about gamification, when to use and not to use, the difference between when you say I'm doing content gamification versus I'm doing platform gamification. What are the differences? What are the elements? And then we'll take one platform, which is an LMS platform that we have, just to show to you what platform gamification may entail. And this may apply to any of the applications, any software product you may be using, not limited to the one we are showing. Even Tamal has a lot of products that have gamification, and you will see some screenshot of the same. And even for people who want to create, maybe there are some developers also in this webinar. So for you, you may learn some of the way where you can, in your software, the right touch points where you could use. So let's see. I mean, it has been me and Tamal. Let's see. We try to do our best to pass on some good value for your time here. We'll also talk about some case studies towards the end. And with that, let's get started. So, uh, gamification, the word is very simple. People understand it. People confuse it also. But how about we take a real life example? Some of the most difficult problem before we get into the corporate side. One of the most difficult problem, and I'm kind of sure that you will agree, is that at home, if you have kid and you have to make him finish his meal, his or her meal, right? For all the parents, we share the same pain. And for people who are not parents, I'm sure you will remember your parents, kind of coaxing you to finish your meal. I mean, that's the most difficult problem yet not solved by any technology. So what do parents do? Sometimes they go into that gamified mode and they pick up the piece of bread and they tell the kid, you know what, this is a moon. Let's see who can eat the moon first. Now, as you would know, the kid will jump at it and better that he wins and you lose. But the funny thing is, actually, you are actually winning. You are the person who is probably winning because you're getting the meal done fast. And for the kid, he also winning because he is being an achiever. He's competing with you and winning, which is a big behavioral dynamics wise a big high for him. So that's gamification is happening everywhere. It is not just limited to software. And then if I go to the next slide, there are a lot of gamification you see in apps, especially yesterday I went to this Bose headphone repair center and they asked me to put a review. The left screenshot is that when I put a review, suddenly I got some 11 points. Okay, fine. Then they said ki you want to earn another 20 points. I did not go into the trap. But you see, the gamification is everywhere. You use those health apps, right? How many steps you did. Oh, this is a goal day. You are a weekend warrior. This is all gamification happening. Now let me bring in Tamal. And Tamal, what do you think? I mean, in terms of introducing gamification in this masterclass, what are your thoughts and ideas?
I think, Prasoon, you've sort of taken us through the entire gamut. The sense I see of talking about gamification is that fundamentally it is useful and applicable anywhere where people are seeking validation, seeking a sense of external or social stimuli recognition is where I see gamification working very well. Plus, the fact that gamification is not about a long term, but is more or less a short term thing that people can latch on to, hang on to, and feel good about. So, if I look at your both 11 points, they were just checking you out with those 11 points to say, hey, can we rope him in for more? But they didn't realize they were working with a gamification master. You said, no, thank you very much. That's where it was, really.
No. I think very good points you mentioned about it being long term, short term. We'll talk more, and I'll again
Yeah.
bring you in. So that brings to the question: why do we need gamification? So now let me zoom into the fact that the audience here is mostly L&D professionals. Uh, so for you, one of the biggest need is that you want people to engage to your system. You want your learners to come and finish those courses. You want your learners to come and build that knowledge community, be part of those knowledge forum, contribute as the gurus. If you have those social learning elements in your learning management system. Now, gamification comes in two flavor, especially for in the L&D context. There is this content gamification, wherein you take your e-learning and you make it gamified, which actually was 2 weeks back. My webinar was on content gamification. The other kind of gamification you have is around the platform gamification, which this talk is all about, and essentially gamification, like Tamal also mentioned, is used as a tool where you want engagement or some validation. So by where do we need gamification? If you have a need for people to be roped in and you need certain amount of percentage of people finishing certain things, those are your areas. They are different from games though. And I think, Tamal, what do you think? It's like my parents, when they used to go, I used to ask them, where are you going? They will say, we are going for marketing. So in our terminology, the Indian terminology, marketing would mean ki going to market and purchasing stuff. So the right word was shopping, but it was kind of confused. If you go to market, you are marketing. But Tamal is so different. So can you help the audience understand the difference between games and gamifications?
Sure, Prasoon. My favorite spot of the day, as I call it. So I think as an organization and as profession where game and game-based learning is very important, I think the distinction really is that gamification to me is the process by which we are able to keep the user engaged and driven into anything we want them to do, versus a game is a game where we sort of put a lens of what we want to see, and then that's done and over with. So fundamentally, the game looks at saying, if I'm looking at game based learning, especially, it really is about saying what are the behaviors I'm trying to see or apply a lens to. And gamification is all about how can I get this person to do more with what I want them to do, at the same time making them feel good. So that to me is the distinction.
Very, very well put. Now, graphically adding it to it, kind of taking back to the boss example. So to look at this, this doesn't look like a game, like a Candy Crush or anything. Okay, I mean, there are these floaters coming up. The very fact that Prasoon went to boss center, celebrated, I mean, which is good.
Yeah.
But this is not game. So the thing is that not all games would have a lot of gamification for sure, but there would be applications which are not game-like, but would have elements of gamification. Like, Tamal also mentioned this whole process within its gamification. Good. So I think we have achieved, we assume, explaining what gamification is, what are the difference between games and gamification, when do we use gamification. Let's address the most important thing, when not to use it. So it is very akin to how your doctor prescribes antibiotic and they warn you, don't use it when you don't need it, because all of these things are built in with some kind of plateauing. So all the reward systems in the world, people who study a lot of HR, bonuses and everything, every instrument has, if you overexpose, people stop responding to it in the way you would have it expected. So it is a very short-term engagement, not very, but short-term engagement, when not to use gamification. So suppose you don't have a need. Imagine you have this HR system, where people go and download their payslip. You don't have to encourage, they will themselves do it, right? Or let's say you have these very government platforms where if you don't fill this tax data, you will be fined. Trust me, everybody will go sincerely and do it. So wherever you need to entice people to do a task which generally they would not do, is an opportunity. And second place where you should not be doing is when there is no context of it, really, in the sense that people may not like those elements, everything popping up. But in L&D, especially if you have some people to do this learning is a heavy task because it is computationally, brain-wise, very expensive for people to go and learn something. So definitely makes a very strong case. Tamal, you have any nuggets on this? Any interesting anecdote?
So it's very interesting, Prasoon. We were working with a particular organization, and almost identical examples were being talked about. Should we sort of gamify everything from payroll to anything that HR has, and so on and so forth was the conversation, right? And interestingly, this was a time when they were sort of trying to bring people back in. They wanted people to come back to work and so on and so forth. So we hit upon an interesting idea of saying, how do you gamify attendance? For instance, how do you come in and say that I can make you look good, coming in, logging in, or badging in, whichever way, is something that the organization values and is something that we can also socialize. So it was interesting that in that entire project, the only parts that worked was attendance, for instance. People coming in and saying, okay, it's perfectly cool to use that tag to say we are in. And then that is gamified to say who's on the leaderboard, what's happening, so on and so forth. It was interesting.
Very, very interesting thing, because that's the least computationally expensive operation for a human being to do.
Yes.
picking up the badge. And if you get some point, so therefore, when we go forward, we'll also talk about the touch points where gamification could be used.
Yeah.
Some kind of jumping the slide, but I think in the example you gave, uh, there are certain points in your platform you can give if somebody logs in. Logging in is as easy as, attendance, you checked in, but it can allow, just like when you go to a mall spend a lot of money, getting foot in the door. So once somebody gets into the mall, the probability is that one of the stores, the Adidas store or the McDonald's over there, they will make business. So the job of a mall is to attract people, just get foot in the door. So sometimes these easy checkpoints are very important. So imagine a system which allows you to, the attendance thing, or when you log in, you get some point, may have people at least come in a little bit more just to earn those points. But yeah, we will see to it in detail as we move forward. So I already talked about it. Content gamification, where like Tamal's team makes a lot of game-based learning. We make game-based learning. Then we have our own platforms. And like I said, we'll talk more about platform gamification in this talk. Okay, so here is the masterclass elements. So how do you identify a system being gamified? What is the blood test or the dipstick test? So it's like this. Any gamified system will have a PBL. So this acronym, please keep it in your memory. PBL, very simple to remember. So any gamified system would typically have a point system. Look at the same example I shared of this tools like Fitbit. So you did so many steps. It's a point. It's generally a numeric thing, generally a positive number, which is almost like currency. It has to be numeric. Or let's just say mostly it is numeric. Then you have badges. B stands for badges of honor. So wow, you checked in to the office today. You completed the goal today. You are the weekend warrior. This application, maybe you really woke up on a Saturday and you dare to get few more steps done for your health's sake. You are awarded. And the third part is leaderboard, which actually creates that social setup, a social comparison, just to see where are you in this whole universe of people running. So if you have a PBL, then I think all the balance of a gamified system you will get. So PBL is the word to remember, guys. Now, GEMS is a very interesting concept, and I'll invite Tamal to talk about what GEMS are.
Right. So thanks, Prasoon. In fact, the PBL, I'll just refer back to the PBL. The gems and shields are just a little different of the same. But if we really look at PBL, and today we are all, if you are using a smartphone or a smartwatch, whether we like it or not, we are in the PBL mode, right? We are constantly being told, do a little more. You are a part of this elite club. You are in the top 10%. Wherever you are, if you are using any health device, whether it is even, whether you're on iOS or Android, something as simple as steps, you are in the PBL world, and it's a good place to understand gamification for yourself. That you are being gamified and you are willingly participating in the entire experience. I think that's key, Prasoon. That how do we make it a more willing participation as opposed to it's being a forced participation, and I think that is the skill that I see you weaving very consistently across what is being done, right? So just to come back to the idea of the sort of gems and shields. So on our platform, what we said is, since we are driving people to do coaching modules, the idea really was that the nuggets that you explore, right, in developing yourself gives you gems, and these gems are of varying kind. So you could get a ruby, you could get a diamond, you could be getting a garnet, depending on how you progress. The idea really is gem value defining your learning journey. That was one part. And shields for us was an interesting idea where we rather use the fear of loss, right? That I don't want to get it wrong. So let me make sure that I'm well covered, I'm protected with shield, so that when I go through something, I have adequate backup to say, even if I get it wrong, I'm not going to lose. So one is driven by a positive reinforcement, and one is driven by a fear of loss. And it was interesting. We have some interesting results on gems and shields, for instance.
And I see a very interesting economical, setup you have created. So you could actually purchase
Yes.
for whatever gems. Through gems, you're making them do all the quiz and practices. You build your confidence, present your best self.
Yes.
And then you can buy a shield. That's like what happens in games also.
Right.
People kind of like it because people inherently like games. And if you bring in a serious dynamics beneath that, everybody wins. And you're so right that it's an accepted game. But both parties should be ready to play in it. We will talk about cases when it goes out of control.
Right.
So for example, when we were, let's say, long back in our rookie mode, we were building the system. We realized that there is this set of gentlemen. They are sitting in the office and logging in again and again. So my quality team that is there some issue because we're continuously getting this heavy load on this activity with a lot of monitors. And then our business team reached back and checked what really happened. They were just trying to earn some points. So we learned you have to put a guardrail. You have to put dampeners. So okay, you log in, you get 100 points, but next login after 5 login, it is immune.
Yeah.
So we also learned it's a complete, even people play the game on you. So interesting stories. So yeah, I think you have built in a very interesting infrastructure around point badges, and we will dwell and ask you more about it as we go forward. Now, for people who want to know the real science behind the deep science, so it is all derived by behavioral dynamics. If you go and Google for behavioral psychology, this is where the whole phenomena is derived from. And why it is important to know is that you may choose one over the other. For example, when you look at something known as social comparison, so everybody, even if you study from Maslow's law, your esteem and where you stand, are you part of the cool group, is a very innate human need. With this whole 5 steps in Maslow's ladder. Then things like so when you see leaderboard, that's happening. Positive reinforcement. I mean, you just showed up and we like 10 points. So if I may say that, generally people are compliment deprived. Generally, in a light way, if you see. So even for basic thing, you may think, "Yo, come on, I'll just say you got 10 points." The person would be like, "I don't care," but you do care. I mean, can I confess, when I saw that 11 point, I at least wanted to see how many points I already have. So you're always trapped. You know that it is being played on you, but it is so innate. Loss aversion. So look at this, what Tamal showed. You have a shield, you can buy it also, but if you don't do certain things, you will lose it. So this whole loss aversion, people don't want to lose the asset. This whole sunk cost that has got into that is a big thing. FOMO is a very popular word these days. I don't think I need to explain, but you want to be there's a lot of FOMO. So suppose even somebody is not topping the leaderboard, but your name is not even appearing in top 50, you at least want somewhere you should be there. Okay, fine. You may not be very aspirational. So there's a lot of FOMO dynamics that are used and built in. Scarcity and exclusivity. People want to be part of this club which is scarce. So many companies do that. They make certain things scarce, so exclusive. And that is where all these shields and these things can bring you to some kind of a special club, and then you get status and prestige. There are more than 34 such patterns that you will find used in gamification, but that is for people who want to go deeper, the advanced user. You have this gamified system, you want to just check if there are more ideas you can have, so you can go deeper in that areas as well. So let me so this is where I am now heading towards. How do you, let's say in a platform, how do you identify, suppose you want to gamify it or you want to audit it for gamification. So the basic technique, the framework is you look at various touch points in a journey of a user. So for example, when you go to, let's say, a platform, you have to log in. So therefore, if you see this arrow, it is kind of showing you how people progress over time on a platform. So for example, first thing would be your initial user. You would want at least people should log in, a new system. So login is your first touch point. Then you move ahead in a learning management. I think a lot of energy is spent by the end users in learning, going through that learning path and finishing all those courses, quizzes, being part of those seminars, those remote session, classroom sessions. So those are actually, if you see, this is a high energy activity for everyone. And when you design a gamification system, you will give higher points to things which require higher motivation. So, for example, you would not do this way. When you log into a platform, you get 500 points, but if you complete a course, you get 10 points. Obvious, right? So that's how you determine the whole economics of these virtual coins. Where would you invest more? And then you have this concept of dampening. Remember this example where somebody keeps logging in, keeps getting those 1 point the whole day. That is his task. That is a very so you create dampeners. How would your score keeps dampening? Maybe you're not allowed to do, let's say, do certain kind of scoring more than 5 times a day. So those things are also intuition that you need to keep in mind. So in learning path, of course, courses, quizzes, all these things have points. And a well-defined designed system would allow the administrator to tune in all those things. What is your dampening? What is your touch points? And it is not necessary that you gamify each part, right, Tamal? I mean, it
Absolutely.
done in a very scientific way, not like a revolution way. You do everywhere, everything is gamified. So
Yeah.
any input or any thoughts you have given your systems, Tamal, at this point?
So it's interesting that I think, gamification also does have the law of diminishing returns. I think, Prasun, you talked about it, right? Which is we cannot endlessly gamify and hope that gamification is going to drive the outcomes that we desire, especially on LMS and learning, right? So how do we have the right mix of the components we are choosing to gamify and by how much, right? Surely in a learning path completion, right? Obviously, course completion is going to probably require a higher gamification, clearly, because that's the hierarchy, that's the outcome we want. You want people to finish their courses, right? So I think from the law of diminishing returns, and if we apply the principle of dampening onto it, fundamentally what we are saying is don't gamify everything just because you can, right?
Yeah.
Have your own thought process and strategy around saying what are the key components I want, because like you said, there are 34 35 motivations. If we start tapping into all of them, we're going to have what I would universally call good khichdi, right? So what you really want is you want it to be focused. So probably you are picking a few things and not trying to do everything. That's what I would say.
No, so true. I mean, law of diminishing return is very important. All the molecule that is controlling in your all these things are dopamine, and they
Yes.
have a very strange behavior. You give too much of it, it asks for more.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a law of diminishing return. So now this is a very important slide, and this can actually open up for why, like a very strong case for why gamification should happen. So let's go back to those fables that we read when we were kids, especially this hare and tortoise, very popular one, where hare is quite fast, and tortoise is of course not that fast, but is very consistent. And finally, as the story goes, the tortoise wins. It has a wisdom, but here again, it's a very polar wisdom. In the world we live, many times, the rabbit or the hare will win because of the speed. So not to say, but sometimes consistency will be rewarded. The the very hard truth is that most of the organization getting high score or finishing with very high marks is one thing that is in a very strong way celebrated, because that's quick to gauge and judge and get. So you gave the course, somebody finished it and got 100, and he's the winner. The rabbit wins. But in gamified systems, suddenly it's more inclusive. Suddenly you have so many parameters that you can reward people on. You cannot keep giving them scores because that will make the integrity of the system go down. But how about, somebody was first to even open that learning path, open that course that you had given, at least opened and, finished the first chapter. So being fast as an attribute, which is unsung generally, can also be brought into the fold. Or you are the first person, like I said, or you are the fastest. So maybe you did not get the highest score, but you passed, but you did it very fast.
So yeah, so Prasoon, if I may come in here, like, if as a organization or as a designer, you're thinking of celebrating learning agility, right? We're saying, and all organizations love the word agility, good, bad, ugly, they love it.
Yep.
So, if you're celebrating learning agility, what you're saying is there are badges around learning agility to say you're quick to get off the blocks, you're quick to get there, get started on a few things. So you're promoting it using gamification, but slightly under the radar, basically.
Correct. I mean, slightly under the radar is the right word. So you may not, but still it will get covered in a very good way, being consistent. This whole idea of having a streak. Okay, this guy may not have scored 100, but he was the person who passed all the last 7 courses.
Yes.
So those are the new dimensions open up rather than one dimension of high score. And then you can also promote, Tamal. A lot of customers use social learning.
Yes.
The biggest fear is going to the social learning system and the blogs are all empty, so that's a nightmare, because it reduces the trust and kind of a declining system. So
Yes.
how do you even reward people who may not be the fastest or the first or high scoring, but socially very good? There are people who are, supporting this whole, they're the people who are responding to the things on forum. Even those get a chance to have some kind of a point value.
Absolutely. And I think today, social, be it social learning or be it social affirmation, I think is an extremely important lever in gamification, right? So both from a consumption standpoint and from a creation standpoint, social levers today, at least in my experience now, I'm seeing that social seems to be leading on most fronts as opposed to necessarily speed, for instance.
Yeah, social lever. So when you talk about social, if you see, there's an image down below. So the story of hare and tortoise is scaled to the whole organization with so many rabbits and tortoise.
Yeah.
So Tamal, all these things can also be, they also play well at group level, right?
Absolutely. So I think, Prasoon, the key is, and I think you've raised a really valid point, and this slide is fantastic for everybody who is either already in and wants to sort of look at gamification, right? The concept of inclusive reward, which is what your image is all about, saying if gamification is exclusive, it's not going to run, right? It has to be inclusive, and thus the hare has to be there, the tortoise has to be there, and the person who is showing up every day has to be there. You've got to have it for all these folks. And gamification allows for that because people look for different things. Some people want the speed, and some people just want to say, I want to be known for somebody who is doing it day in, day out. I'm not making a fuss, but that's what I want to be known for,
That's true. Okay, with this, now gamification can also happen at a group level. So we have so many implementation where kind of group competes in a way. This is the fastest group or the first finishing group or a group that has maintained the streak. So all this can be scaled up to a group level as well in the organization, and that makes the game go at a more multiplayer level, for the want of word. So how do you typically see a gamified system? So this is how should you consume this slide is that, and I lead you through it. What are the elements, if your system has become gamified, you may have, not exactly, but kind of like some kind of a indication. So the admin is the first person who has an important job to do, and you have to configure your touch points and events. So you would have some kind of a control either done by you or by your vendor, where you can say, okay, this area I want to gamify, or this is how I want the points to be given, and then how I want my leaderboard to be presented. So these things one has to configure. Typically, I'm giving just a visual, this thing that this screen shows how you can gamify your login screen, the most easiest thing in the world, almost like the attendance thing that Tamal talked about, but it has its value. So you see there are two things their first time login, you get 500 points. Subsequent login, you get 10 points. So whatever is in your mind, you will put for that. And then, of course, like I said, in a real system, you would not keep giving a lot of points for login, because there are much higher, more difficult, higher engagement activities required. You will put more points to that. But this is more of an indication. You can put your numbers. So you see all these the sliders over here. If you don't want something to be gamified, you will just close them. So same way, learning path, how much you want to give for completion. You have different type of courses, how many points. So I think it's pretty similar. For each of your touch point, you may have your system of allocation. Even there are more complex implementation that we have done for our client, where they say, no, for this kind of a learning path, this is a high value path for us. There should be higher points. So there are, you keep going down that rabbit hole, you'll find the whole universe that you can create. So it's up to you and your need. And the caution remains that we should not forget what it was for a short-term engagement, short-term activity for increasing engagement. As long as that thing is taken care of, rest is. Now this screen shows, how these things are celebrated. When somebody logs in, you are welcome with your 110 point. Trust me, for some people will be like, what, how does it even matter? It does matter. Subconsciously it does. The primate brain gets affected. Even if you will be like, oh, I don't care. Other important thing is, in a good gamified system, you earn a point, it tells you where you are, and it allows you to earn more incentive. Like, remember that Bose store thing? They said you got 11 point, but you can earn another 100 point if you go and review these things as well. So there has to be a continuity. In a good gamified system, don't just leave it at there. If you want more result, connect it to the next task. So again, similar example, somebody finishing a course and you are earning a few more points. Very similar. For different activities, you can have points. You can have your own kind of a celebration setup you can create. You can go subtle. You may not want all that bells and whistles. You can optimize there. And here is one of the key concept, the badge of honors. Designing of badges, like in Tamil system, it is a very advanced design where you can also trade your points to buy some badges. A lot of good ideas are there. So for example, just to give you a flavor, you can have nicely designed. One of my favorite badges, Pathfinder, because many companies face this challenge. There are so many learning paths, and you want your sales team or your tech team to finish those paths. So for a certain setup, because when you finish this 10 learning paths, suddenly you get this nice Pathfinder. Depending on the system, which badges. There's some audio coming. Can I request? Okay, can rest of the people please mute? Then there are badges of different kind. The only thing I want you to understand is for all the touch point, like there were assessment, training, there will be some badges you can build, and you can have more complex dynamic. There could be badges which go away after a time, like trophies, right? So there are badges which don't stay with you forever. There are badges that stay with you forever. So those are some of the interesting things we do when we design any gamification. What kind of badges are required? What you will have a time limitation. Anything which requires, like there are a lot of retraining. So imagine you in your L&D setup, you want certain insurance agent to be getting retrained after 3 months because maybe it's a mandate. So you will have a badge which will kind of disappear, and you have to reclaim that trophy or a badge after 3 months. And so those dynamics which you're facing, after 3 months, I have to again ask these guys to do it. It's an important compliance, can also be driven in parallel through these subtle dynamics. Anything you want to add, Tamal, about the badges?
So very interesting, Prasoon. I see that the system is very sophisticated because it's not a static system, right? And I think that dynamism really adds value to the user, that I'm not getting into my dash and I'm looking at my badges and I don't see the same ones all the time, right? I have done something that a system has recognized, and that's the sophistication, right? It's not the standard. The sophistication is the system recognized me as a different user. And hey, I suddenly see this learning path badge coming up, or I suddenly see that, hey, you're a commander because you have done so many of these things. I think that validation. So this is a very sophisticated thing I'm seeing, just so that I could tell you that it is able to actually say that a user is being mapped to the way he or she does not even know. And these surprise elements are always fantastic to say that, hey, oh, okay, I got a badge and I'm happy about it. That's the key.
Yeah, everybody loves badges, so yeah.
Everybody loves badges.
Okay, very quickly, this is how for an end user it would look like. You know what? You got 690 points, you are 6 batches, and these are the batches you've earned. Then there could be a log of how you have accrued, or drop by drop how you have accrued if you want to see. Then very important, the PBL part, a nice representation celebrating who are the top 3 folks, and you are not in the top 3, but you are 6th. But around your vicinity, these are the people. So that puts people, if their difference is very high, for example, the person is 60th rank and you show only top 3, then they see that disconnect. Oh my God, I don't think I can reach them, or I want to. But you have to show their peers. People are just above and bottom. That's very important, because then they think, okay, at least I can cross this guy. I know Adam. He's not. I mean, I can exceed him. So that allows a little nudge up there. Okay, so I'll kind of rush through all this thing, just to spend a few seconds for you to absorb. There are different kind of reports. I really don't want to dwell on it because that's too detailed. But at least to cover, you can have so many reportings depending on your business needs. And I would actually like to jump to the most interesting part for advanced user, where I have implemented gamification on platform and seen very successful use cases. And you will see 2 things: how differently different customers are capturing the touch points and how they're rewarding it. Because the idea is this: suppose so I have this application, and I'm sure many of you use this application, where for everything I do on my credit card, I get, so many points. Initially, it was fun. Now I'm a very rich guy in terms of the point. I have some, I don't know, whatever, 60,000 points. And then suddenly you realize, what will I do with that? They've been playing on me. So there has to be some encashment mechanism for points, because like Tamal has been mentioning this thing, it has a very short-term game. People will bust it after a while if nothing. So all these points, what really happens to them? Why were you attaining all that wealth? What's
Airline tickets, Prasoon. Airline tickets.
Airline tickets, yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. So let's see I'll share some 4 use cases. My favorite one. So this is a customer which is in the customer finance industry, a billion-dollar company, multi-billion-dollar. So they introduced a concept in their setup known as learn and earn. So there are certain trainings they've identified that these are mandatory training. You have to do them. And if you complete these trainings, you get points, which means there are certain trainings where they're not even bothering about the point system. So where they're kind of focusing on a certain mandatory activity. Very nice, because in your organization, you may do analysis and figure out what kind of trainings are must have. You focus gamification just on that. Put a laser light on those. So people get points. Now let me talk about how do they encash. So in this case, this company, I mean, they're in finance, so maybe it's all about money and redeeming through vouchers and gift card. So they allow people who have gained certain point to buy whatever, gift they may have, shopping coupons, whatever. But a subtle thing here, not everything needs to be converted to something which is money oriented, like you will see in the next cases. Because each thing has its own side effects, because then people may be sad because they did not get that iPod, and they find it unjust, that iPad, sorry, not iPod. Sorry, I'm a 90s kid, so it's still stuck in my head. Second customer case is about fashion and lifestyle industry, a very big lifestyle brand. They hold different points for different training. And again, they're using these, the quizzes have certain higher points, because sometimes quizzes are the real test. People can complete the material, but if you do well on quizzes, so they've kind of amplified higher points for for finishing the quizzes. In this case, they're not monetizing. So what HR does is that they download the report every month and they make it as a point in their appraisal that, if you have higher points, it kind of reflects in the appraisal. So another beautiful case where it's all not about cashing in money. It could be in terms of your career progression. Very good use case. Third one is a very large automobile manufacturer, two-wheeler manufacturer. Their sales team uses learning path gamification. So again, similar phenomena. They have these learning paths, different scores, stuff like that. And they identify monthly topper. And they actually put that leaderboard and the reward and recognize those folks. And it need not be, it could be actually a printed A4 printout in the reception of your company, which can show who are the winner. You can, not everything has to be offline, depending. A manufacturing industry still may be using some of the offline presence and method. It's very tangible thing they work on. So it could be even simple printout that people wait for, is my name there or not. The similar thing we have seen in our schools also, right? You will wait for that list before your name to appear. Or even if it's not your name, you get this FOMO, oh my God, I'm not being recognized, So it works interestingly. And the last case study is about this agri-tech company. And they have used, for their extended team, not just their team, extended team, they do gamification and training, participation. So they have ways where you can measure, classroom participation, and they reward again on a monthly basis. These are the rewards that they provide based on the ranking. So again, a cash reward, something like that. So this kind of encompasses right from the definition to how to use, not to use, what are the stratification of reward. The best part is that gamification opens up so many people that can be involved. You're not only rewarding the fastest. So that is the key point why people sign up for this thing. And then you can laser light and you can say these things are premium mandatory training or important training, and people kind of benefit from it. And before we go to summarization, I'll have Tamal, kind of share some of the cases he must have seen and would be useful for this masterclass. Tamar, you there?
Sorry, Prasoon. So I said there are many, but I think the favorite one that comes to my mind was that we partnered with a very large non-profit who was into the skilling space, right? And they had to incentivize their learners to move from pure classroom to a blended model of being classroom and digital, right? So the entire gamification process was first to say that you need to come in, right? And then you need to consume this entire content on mobile on your own with minimum assistance, right? Because that was the pain point they were trying to solve for scale. They needed a digital assistant to do this entire learning process for the people, and they had difficulties with different things. So as soon as we sort of said, okay, there's only one way to do it, is you have to tap into gamification, because we are talking to a social class where recognition is very important. Like you rightly said early on, Prasoon, right? That, hey, I'm on the leaderboard, or hey, I'm getting called out. Hey, somebody is in the classroom at the end of every week saying that there is a reward. It's a simple reward. We gave a 50 rupee book. A 50 rupee book was reward in every classroom across, I think, 40 classrooms, right? And I was just conducting interview after interview to understand why are people consuming it. So there were those who were consuming it for the content and their own learning, but some of them were very clear about it. Sir, wo book jeetna hai. Now, I don't even know, funnily enough, will they read the book or not, and how many of them read the book. But it was very, very clear that these parts of, we got some unbelievable completion rates, where completion rates were in single digit, double digit. We were at 85% completion rate.
Wow.
Right? Everyone is at it to say, I need to finish. And it's a short period, right? If you miss the week, you miss the window. You're not going to get carried forward. It's a weekly window in which you got to finish your stuff.
Yeah.
So the completion rates were off the chart. But I did say that, it's still a high touch point it's still a high touch point business. Some of the cases you've put together are tens of thousands of people. You can't do this. This was in the end about 1,500, 2,000 people went through the entire exercise. But the value proposition of gamification was very clear. There is a vast set of people who are going to be driven by it. It's for us to find the right lever and say, this is what is going to work. This is the part we should gamify. And that's really what it was.
No, very, very good. I think time has come. Kamal and I would kind of summarize. We've already iterated the whole flow. So advice is that if you are planning to gamify, first look at the behavioral dynamics that you want to involve given your culture so that you know which one to use. Figure out what are your areas of intervention, because you do gamify just for gamification, gamify for a particular ROI that you want.
Right.
And figure out your courses, your intent, the behavior change that you want, and focus more on the high value behavior change, and then go work with a vendor, work with platform companies. If you're developing yourself, do that and design right weight balances, dampening, and enjoy the whole gamification flow. That's the whole idea of this masterclass. So Anubha, I think we are quite done from our side in terms of summarizing. It was a great discussion with Tamal. I mean, offline also we shared a lot of good notes on how we have gamified, but it was lovely to present it. And I hope this was of value to the audience. We can open up for a Q&A now, if everyone is okay with that.
Yeah, so we have some questions from some of our participants. I'll just put across. So Vaibhav is asking, I see substantial efforts being put in packaging the content on a game format to improve consumption. In what ways the game elements can be infused in the instructional design process to improve retention and application?
So Tamal, the question, I think, since you have been very actively, have successfully delivered a lot of game-based content, so what are some things that have to be kept in mind? Would you want to take this?
Yeah, sure, Prasoon. I think from our experience, we've sort of done these pathways in different ways. The paths that we see in game-based content is one needs to be very sure of how difficult you're making it or how easy you're making it. When you are using any form of game-based, be it a decision tree model or be it a linear step-by-step sequencing, it doesn't matter. The key to doing game-based content is the challenge level should be a little bit of a stretch. It shouldn't be too hard. It shouldn't be too easy. Nobody likes to play a pushover, nor does anybody like to play the world number one, right? So when you use game, the level of game, be it a simulation, be it a scenario, needs to be optimized for the broad level of your cohort. If you're trying to say that I only am aiming for the apex level, the chances are you're going to drop everyone else off. They're not going to be really keen. So the level of challenge that we use in any game-based content is very, very important. You got to hit more of the mean, right, than the outliers. That's my sense, Prasoon. I hope it helped, Vaibhav.
I think it does make a lot of sense when you look at it statistically, which group are you addressing, and that is where my addition to this point that Vaibhav asked was from an instructional design point of view. How do you attack is that you have to identify your audience. For example, the kind of theme of game you keep has to be in line with what your audience is, and believe me, there are a lot of variants. So I'll tell you, there was this insurance company that we worked for, and their audience had this. They used to win a lot of. It's a very sporty team, so their people will play a lot of. If you enter their office, first thing you see the trophies that they have won over various sports. So our team looked at the audience, and they realized that cricket is a big thing for them. So they created a kind of a game based on. So you have to really go to the audience and see the playful side of it. There's a serious side, playful side, which thing connects them, and people love it. So then the game was created on cricket. Then if you suppose you were to go in a law firm, maybe I don't want to really classify them, but the people are maybe serious. So if you bring in this whole lot of lot of jazz happening, they may not connect. So they may be very serious, high risk. So the kind of gamification or game script you will have would be around something very competitive, or you will bring in suits theme to your story. So first thing is matching the audience. That is my first thing when you are going from ID point of view. And second is more like you don't have to get trapped that you're making a gamified content. I've seen people over investing. Why? Games are slower. To develop game is costlier and slower. Unlike, imagine you had a slide which just mentioned your point in a certain well-balanced ID principle. You can pass on much more content in 2 slides, but if you were to make a game, you will need much more, imagery, much more thing, and the information content is never very high. So another thing we have learned is that make a hybrid game. They should be daubed in like nice cherries on cake. So don't go ahead and create another Counter Strike. Believe me, no ROI. You will be very satisfied, but in the end, so creating a hybrid game is very important, which our team does a lot. So yeah, so wrap up. I hope we may have maybe over answered, but I think that was your question. I guess yeah.
Okay, so we have another question. In what ways the overall look and feel of gamified learning can be customized to suit senior management team members?
So I think partly I answered that you have to sit. So best way is you interview people there. Is you figure out what is there. Every team has some kind of a internal joke or internal thing that they like. If you work on that theme, it clicks, isn't it? When you three friends are standing and there is certain common joke, then everybody connects. So the best idea is figure out a theme for. Okay, senior management are seem to be little hard nosed. They may be serious, but even in their segment, they will be real. Like I mentioned with these lawyers, they would like the concept. Okay, suit like elements will be there. But like lawyer, they were objecting to everything. But somehow my team could work and create something which is. So with senior management, you may not want to have too much of you know pretty birds flying in your game. You have to be in that zone which is their reality. The fun side that they live in has to be induced. That is my answer, like a similar answer which was there. But yeah, that comes to my mind. Yeah. And hybrid again. Senior guys will not like too much of dance and drama happening. Maybe start with that, get serious towards the end, make it fun again. Package it in a certain layers. Yeah.
So we have last two questions to address here. So can we customize the options like badges, rewards, leaderboards over the LMS as per the requirement?
So this is a generic webinar. Of course, the idea of masterclass is not really focusing on our system, but since your question is again specific, so I'll answer it. Yeah, I mean, any software has to give that freedom. Our LMS specifically allows that because we have done, last 6 years of this whole journey in gamification, starting from very basic things. So yeah, it should at least give you that at your touch point and your sub touch point level, some variance. However, there are certain clients who have over configured. For example, there is a learning path, you get 300, you get 200. In certain cases, it may not matter. You may just keep the flat thing. It is like over designing. But in certain cases, like mandatory training having higher points, rest zero. So our system does allow a very high, reasonable depth. So, and sometimes people may have their own use cases. We work as a custom modification. So yes, answer is we love to work on gamification projects, fun, and we are open to any such requirement. Yeah, so that's my side. Tamal, if you have anything to add on this.
I think the answer is pretty clear. You've sort of answered it, Prasoon, but it's a function of what LMS you are on. Some of them do allow, some of them don't. I think that's pretty much it. So if you want a lot of customization, look at an LMS that provides that custom. Else, look at something which is standard.
Thanks, Tamal. So one last question, Prasun and Tamal, to address here before we just wrap up the session. What language options apart from English will be or can be implemented?
Again, it's like out of the curriculum, but
Prasoon, it is that question. It is the language translate question.
So Tamal, why don't you address it? Let's
So I think almost the short answer is that today most LMSs offer some form of translation completely. Your real challenge in translation remains how sure you are of the translational nuance of that content. So when you want to translate something, and we've done a lot of this in the Arab world. I'm in Dubai right now, right? And no, Google Translate doesn't cut it, for instance, right? Google Translate doesn't cut it. They are particular about what will fly in Oman versus what will fly in Saudi versus what will fly in UAE. So Translate, I think, is a choice that almost all LMSs do offer. But I think your overhead is high in terms of having to validate the content itself. That's my sense, Prasoon.
No, I think now this helped me understand the question. Probably I was seeing in a different light. So yes, most of the platform today allow. I mean, Google Translate is not a thing. It's part of the hygiene thing. I mean, people use better libraries. We use certain more sophisticated engines,
Yeah.
which allow better translation. And ultimately, the thing about translation is that the only benefit has been that now you give your AI translated output. Maybe if you want, you can give it to an agency to review, which may be a lower cost activity as opposed to creating the original translation. So that is one thing. Our platform does allow automatic translation of certain entity, again as an add-on, not for all the accounts. So these are these add-on features.
Yeah.
And another thing is that so there's no direct connect with gamification per se, if I've understood correctly. This is more of a platform.
Yeah. Play.
But we have tools and technology separately as part of our firm, something known as doctor e-learning, where we provide setups where you can translate your XLIF file in various formats. So those are some of the side comment. But remaining in the theme of masterclass, not selling, like I said, idea is not to true to the masterclass, right, Tamal? So yeah. So I think that that finishes all the question because we have
Yes.
run out of time now.
We're running out of time. So thank you everyone for your questions. And if in case your queries are left or you have some questions to ask, you can definitely write us to at prasun@stratbeans.com or deepa@stratbeans.com. It's displayed on your screens. So we are going to wrap up today's masterclass session, and I want to extend a heartfelt thanks to both Tamal and Prasun for joining us. A very special thank you to Tamal for taking out time and agreeing to join us as a guest speaker for today's session, despite your busy schedule. So we really appreciate your time with us, and we are looking forward to many more collaborative sessions in the near future with us. So to all our participants, thank you for your time and engagement. Just be with us for more updates and sessions in the near future, and have a great day ahead. Thank you so much, Tamal and Prasun. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you, Nova. Have a great day, everybody. Happy gamification. Bye-bye.
Yeah, happy gamification, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.